Kroger Delivery has one mission: to deliver the freshest food right to your door. That's why our drivers are pros. Our trucks are refrigerated. And when it comes to low prices, we always deliver. With $20 off your first order of $75 or more, there's no better time to get in on the action. Mission accomplished. Restrictions apply. See site for details.
Money decisions don't have to be either or. With Bank of America, they can be yes and. Like yes to sunny vacations and rainy day funds. Can our digital tools and guidance help you create the future you want? Yes. And help you keep enjoying today, too. Do more with a bank that asks, what would you like the power to do? Explore our tips and more at bankofamerica.com/yes and.
Hello and welcome back to the Tudors Dynasty podcast. I'm your host, Rebecca Larson. Today we're setting sail back to the ancient world to explore the life, myth, and legacy of one of history's most captivating figures, Helen of Troy. This is the woman who, as the poet Christopher Marlowe famously wrote, launched 1,000 ships, sparking the Trojan War and captivating the imaginations of storytellers for thousands of years.
The Tudors Dynasty Podcast.
Helen of Troy has been portrayed as a femme fatale, a pawn of the gods, a loyal wife, and a tragic heroine. In ancient Greek mythology, few figures embody the same blend of allure, mystery, and controversy. Today, we'll dive deep into her story, dissecting the myths that surround her beauty, her role in the Trojan War, and the legacy she left behind. To understand Helen, we need to go back to the very beginning, to her family. Helen was born into a lineage that practically guaranteed her life would be extraordinary. Her father was none other than Zeus, king of the gods, who supposedly took the form of a swan to seduce, or in some versions, assault her mother, Leda. This unusual conception makes Helen both divine and mortal, bridging two worlds and drawing the attention and jealousy of gods and men alike. But Helen's family tree doesn't stop with Zeus and Leda. Her siblings were also legendary figures. Her sister, Clytemnestra, would go on to marry Agamemnon, the leader of the Greek forces at Troy. Her brothers, Castor and Pollux, were known as the Dioscuri, twin heroes with their own adventures, even earning a place among the stars as the constellation Gemini. With such lineage, it's no wonder that Helen was destined to become a central figure in one of the greatest stories ever told. Now, Helen's story really begins with a fateful event known as the Judgment of Paris. Picture this. The gods are gathered at the wedding of Peleus and Thetis, the future parents of Achilles. But an uninvited guest crashes the party, the goddess of discord, Eris, who throws a golden apple labeled "for the fairest" into the crowd. Immediately, three powerful goddesses lay claim to it. Hera, the queen of the gods, Athena, the goddess of wisdom and war, and Aphrodite, the goddess of love and beauty. To settle the dispute, Zeus appoints Paris, a prince of Troy, to judge who among them is the fairest. Each goddess offers Paris a bribe. Hera promises power. Athena offers wisdom and military skill. But Aphrodite promises the love of the most beautiful woman in the world, Helen of Sparta. Paris, entranced by the promise of Helen's love, awards the apple to Aphrodite, setting into motion a chain of events that will lead to the Trojan War. Before Helen met Paris, her life seemed fairly secure. She was married to Menelaus, king of Sparta, and they even had a daughter, Hermione. Menelaus, known for his bravery and loyalty, was devoted to Helen, and by many accounts, she returned his affection. But in the world of Greek mythology, stability is often temporary, especially for someone with a destiny as complicated as Helen's. When Paris arrived in Sparta, the relationship between him and Helen became the subject of many interpretations. Some versions of the myth describe Helen as being smitten by Paris, enchanted by Aphrodite's power. Others suggest that she was reluctant or even forced to go to Troy. It's worth noting that in some interpretations, like Euripides' play Helen, Helen is said to have never gone to Troy at all, but was replaced by a phantom while she remained in Egypt. In most traditional accounts, however, Helen leaves Sparta with Paris, and they journey to Troy together. For Menelaus and the Greeks, the act is not only an insult to his honor, but a breach of the sacred bonds of marriage, and xenia, the Greek code of hospitality. After all, Paris had been a guest in Menelaus' home when he stole his wife. It's this betrayal that makes Helen's departure a matter of national pride and fuels the Greek coalition against Troy. Menelaus, alongside his brother Agamemnon, gathers the greatest Greek warriors to retrieve Helen. This army includes heroes like Achilles, Odysseus, and Ajax. It's fascinating to think that although Helen isn't a warrior, her influence over the hearts and minds of men is so powerful that they are willing to fight and die to reclaim her.
Sephora stores are everywhere you are, so just pop in. When you need a brown lip to match your 90s playlist, a confidence boost before your interview, or a last-minute gift for mom's birthday. There's always a Sephora near you. Just pop in. Use our store locator to find your local Sephora or Sephora at Kohl's.
During the 10 years of the Trojan War, Helen's role is as ambiguous as it is impactful. Homer's Iliad portrays her as a woman torn between her loyalties. While she lives in Troy with Paris, she often mourns for the Greek soldiers and feels guilt for the war. In Book 3 of the Iliad, she speaks with Priam, the Trojan king, expressing sorrow for the conflict she has brought upon his people. Helen's actions in Troy vary across sources. Some versions depict her as a seductress who used her charms to manipulate Paris and the Trojan court, while others show her as a more passive figure, a woman simply trying to survive amidst a war that seems as inevitable as it is tragic. In one famous scene, she tries to dissuade the Trojans from continuing the conflict by acknowledging the destruction it has wrought, showing her complex position as both instigator and sympathizer. When Troy falls, Helen's fate remains uncertain. In some versions, she's forced to face the consequences of her actions. Greek playwrights like Euripides dramatize the idea of Helen facing punishment or judgment, but ultimately in Homer's version, Menelaus forgives her and takes her back to Sparta. It's a surprising twist considering that the war cost so many lives, yet Helen is ultimately returned to her place as queen. This reunion raises some intriguing questions. Did Menelaus truly forgive Helen, or did he take her back as a political necessity? The Greeks' willingness to welcome Helen back, despite the devastation of war, reflects the cultural power her beauty held. But returning to Sparta, Helen regains her status as queen, but her legacy is forever marked by the destruction of Troy. Helen of Troy has been reimagined countless times in literature, art, and pop culture. From Homer's epic poems to the tragic plays of Euripides and the romantic portrayals of modern cinema, her story continues to evolve. In the Renaissance, she became an emblem of ideal beauty, while today she is often viewed as a figure of empowerment or tragic consequence, depending on the lens through which her story is viewed. Helen's legacy is a testament to the power of myth to transcend time. She represents the intersection of beauty, agency, and fate. A woman who both possessed and was possessed by her own allure. Whether we view her as a villain, a victim, or a complex figure caught between worlds, Helen remains an enduring symbol of the far-reaching consequences of desire and the complexities of human relationships. So who was Helen of Troy, really? Perhaps she was simply a mirror reflecting the desires, ambitions, and fears of those around her. Or perhaps she was a woman bound by her own beauty, unable to escape a fate decided by gods and men. Whatever the answer, Helen's story will continue to captivate us, reminding us of the age-old truth that beauty, power, and fate are as intertwined today as they were in ancient times. Thank you so much for joining me on this journey into the myth and mystery of Helen of Troy. This is a topic that has been of great interest to me lately, and I thought I would share the story with you as well. Thank you so much for listening. And that concludes another episode of the Tudors Dynasty podcast. Thank you so much for listening. If you love the show and would like to show your support, consider becoming a patron over on Patreon. That's patreon.com/Tudors Dynasty. Over there, you'll get commercial-free episodes, early access, and some patron-exclusive content as well. If you would prefer to show your support in another way, head on over to my website, tudorsdynasty.com, and click on the shop to see some of the new merchandise that I have available. Thank you so much for listening. Until next time.
The Tudors Dynasty Podcast.